You remember that time when House Republicans ousted their speaker and then couldn't pick a speaker for so dang long, and it was a global embarrassment? Well, some House Republicans want to go through that entire process all over again. This is just completely and totally ridiculous. In the wake of Mike Johnson reaching a tentative agreement with Chuck Schumer to fund the government that included things that hardliners were not happy with, and Mike Johnson didn't get enough concessions and all of that. And so because of that, now we have discussion again of vacating the chair, getting rid of the speaker, oust him. And specifically, I'll bring you the communications director of the congressional crazies, we'll say, Marjorie Taylor Greene. In just a second, we'll look at what she's saying her red line is, what would cause her to be an advocate for vacating the chair or ousting Mike Johnson. Before getting to that, though, here is some reporting first from the New York Times. Conservatives thrust the House back into chaos on Wednesday, grinding business to a halt in protest of the spending deal Speaker Mike Johnson struck with Democrats to avert a government shutdown and leaving the funding package in limbo. A dozen hardline Republicans defected from the party line to tank a routine procedural measure, blocking consideration of a pair of GOP bills in what amounted to a warning shot by members of the ultra-conservative Freedom Caucus that they would not stand for the agreement. Then we get to Marjorie Greene specifically, some reporting on her. Newsweek reports Marjorie Taylor Greene draws red line for Mike Johnson. It goes on to write, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene drew a red line for House Speaker Mike Johnson over funding for Ukraine. So funding for Ukraine is a sticking point for Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's obsessed with opposing aid going to Ukraine as they defend themselves against Russia's invasion. With that being said, here is her during an interview on Real America's Voice, explaining again what her red line is.
In my meeting with him yesterday and many other members of Congress, I let Speaker Johnson know that in no way, shape, and form will I support any type of CR. We aren't continuing Nancy Pelosi's budget, and that if he moves forward with a separate deal trading our border security, weakening H.R. 2 in exchange for $60 billion to Ukraine, I told him yesterday in his office that I would vacate the chair, that is absolutely unacceptable. And we actually have the power of the purse. We're the ones that are in control, and we need to control the negotiations. I reiterated those same points this morning, so the ball is in his court.
So these hardliner MAGA Republicans, they just don't understand the concept of compromise. That, okay, you're going to debate on funding, you get some stuff you want, they get some stuff they want, and then you continue allowing for the government to function. But for people like Marjorie Greene, a single thing in there that she doesn't want means mayhem. And a single thing not in there that she wants to be in there means mayhem. And same thing with some of these other hardliners. Again, we're using her as a representation of a few within the House Republican caucus. And that's not how you govern. Right now, you have a majority of Democrats in the Senate, majority of Republicans in the House. So by the very nature of that situation, you're going to have to find compromise to allow for the government to function and to actually get along with governing. Do some stuff for us, please. And that's what hardcore MAGA Republicans just don't seem to understand. Here's another moment from Marjorie Greene on Steve Bannon's show, and then we'll get to Mike Johnson responding to the hardliners. Is he, I'll leave you on a cliffhanger before playing this Marjorie Greene clip, is he going to shift off of his position for his hardliner part of the party? Is he going to go back to Schumer and say, never mind on that agreement, I'm going to bring forward some demands as presented by MTG? Or is he going to stick to the agreement he struck with Schumer? We'll see. But first, hear from Marjorie Greene.
The rest of it, Biden's regime basically shuts itself down.
No, if I'm Speaker of the House, I finish the job in the House. I pass the appropriation bills. And then I tell Chuck Schumer in the Senate, it's your job now, buddy. You do your work. And then we'll talk. But right now, Mike Johnson is getting rolled in meeting after meeting after meeting. When he is talking to Jake Sullivan and Chuck Schumer every day and impressed with these Four Corners meetings, but he's not talking to me and other important members in our Republican conference at all about any of the negotiations and any of the plans and exactly what we want to see done. He's failing on the job. But the biggest...
Yeah. So actually, I'll let her finish this a little bit.
Red flag for me, Steve, right now that has me livid is this deal with Ukraine. This is a losing war.
Right. Okay. And then her normal stuff on that. My goodness. How you can't understand both how aid to Ukraine is in the interest of Ukrainians, of course, but also if you're just thinking selfishly for the United States in our geopolitical interests, making sure Russia understands that they can't continue to aggress upon sovereign countries is crucial, again, so that we don't get pulled into a war. This is preventing war. But just, she's really obsessed with that and has been for months, trying to get absolutely no aid to be sent. Pretty wild. With that being said, here was Mike Johnson sort of in the wake of all of the reporting about hardliners being upset with him and him hearing directly from Marjorie Greene and others, and he actually is not backing off of the agreement. You'll hear him here try to tout the concessions he got out of Democrats and things like that, but the bottom line point he makes is that the agreement still stands with Schumer.
After weeks of hard-fought negotiations, we achieved a strong top-line agreement that allows our Appropriations Committee and all those who work on this to complete the appropriations process. It's an important part of keeping the government running. The top-line agreement includes hard-won concessions to cut more billions, as you know, from the IRS giveaway and the COVID era slush funds. By
the way, the thing he's excited about there, before playing the rest of the clip, is trying to walk back what was implemented in the Inflation Reduction Act fought for by Biden and Democrats, which provides extra resources, more funding to the IRS, specifically to focus on going after wealthy tax cheats, people who can afford to pay the proper amount in taxes and are not paying their lawfully obligated taxes. And we make more money back from that than it even took to provide that additional funding. And they have this ridiculous myth of 87,000 IRS agents are going after MAGA. Oh no. And so they've been fighting to defund the IRS, which really just serves to, again, prevent the IRS from going after wealthy tax cheats.
It replaces accounting gimmicks from the prior FRA agreement, and it brings Congress much closer to regular order, which is our big commitment here. In keeping with my commitment to bring members into the legislative process, I've spoken and received feedback this week from many members all across the Republican conference. That's a very important part of this. When I became Speaker, I committed to decentralizing the Speaker's office and making this a member-driven process. That's been part of this. Our top-line agreement remains. We are getting our next steps together, and we are working toward a robust appropriations process. So stay tuned for all.
So the big phrase there is our top-line agreement remains. He's not walking back on the agreement with Schumer. He's not trying to go back and fight for what MTG and the hardliners want. The deal, the agreement stands that he struck with Schumer. So what's the reaction going to be from the cuckoo MAGAs? We'll see. Interestingly, NBC News reports moderate Democrats say they'd help Mike Johnson keep his job as Speaker. A handful of moderate Democrats say they would be willing to save the new Republican House Speaker, Mike Johnson, if hardline conservatives moved to oust him from power as they did to his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy. So in this situation, some Democrats are saying if indeed a motion to vacate takes place and we're asked to vote on whether or not Mike Johnson should stay the Speaker, we're open to saving his job. which is very different than the stance going into the ouster of Kevin McCarthy. So fascinating moment, a constant reminder of the fact that Republicans, especially in the House, are just not serious about governing. They're horrible at it and don't seem to be that dedicated to serious governance and accomplishments for the American people. And we can change that. We have the power to change it. So let's vote them out and get some more serious people in there to actually make some progress. Make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel. And if you want extra content, the daily bonus show, you can get that at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership.